the Bible, there is this saying where Jesus says that I am the way, I am the truth. No one can reach the heaven except through me. Apparently, before Jesus said this, on that occasion, first he said to the disciples that he is actually going back to his Father. And once he reveals this, all the disciples ask, so where do we find you? How can we reach you? How do we follow you? And then Jesus says that I am the way. Perhaps meaning that lead the way that I have led. Lead the path that I have taken.
Correct. Absolutely. That's the context,
So when you put it in this context, actually it means, it makes so much meaning.
You see, the message transcends the messenger.
Yes.
The messenger is simply an expression and a form to lead us to the message. But the message has not changed since the creation of the world. The message is the same. All the great sages, all the great avatars echo the same message. Often what we do is we get stuck on the messenger and we miss the message.
Yes.
So I can say I'm a devotee of Jesus, I'm a devotee of Swami. But if I'm not following the message of the messenger, then I'm not a devotee.
Yes.
And so Jesus says very clearly, many who call me Lord, Lord, will not enter the kingdom of heaven, but they that do the will of my Father. And that's the key to the messengers that come to us, is to truly be their devotees. We've got to follow the message that they give. And again, if we interrogate all the messages at its deepest level, we will find that they all are saying the same thing.
And in fact, even as we talk about this, I remember how Father Charles from Nigeria, he was also so much into the study of Eastern philosophy as well as Christianity. And, the way he explained this, he said, when Jesus says, I am the way, who is that I? If you're restricting that I to only the body of Jesus, but Jesus transcends the body.
Exactly, yeah.
He's that I.
He says, I am. Whenever Jesus says, I am, it's an important statement because he's using the words of God in the Old Testament. When God appeared to Moses in the Old Testament, Moses said, God, who are you? Mm-hmm. And God said, I am that I am, which is the same thing as Om Tat Sat. It is. It's beyond any definition. It just is what it is. And one only experiences it through the grace of God, but it goes beyond words. And so when God describes himself, the best thing he can say about himself is, I am that I am.
I am that. In fact, I remember one occasion when Baba asked some of the people around him, who do you think I am? He said, the only proper definition is, I am I.
Exactly. And it's a realization that every soul actually needs to make. It's not just the messengers that have that realization. All of us, before the final liberation takes place, need to awaken to that truth, that in the deepest part of myself, my essence is, I am that I am.
Wonderful. But how do you really, these concepts at that level seem so seamless and so universal, but it is so difficult perhaps to communicate all this to the masses. Have you been able to communicate this message to the people in South Africa or elsewhere about this commonality of the message?
One of the powerful traditions of India is that great mysteries have often been presented in ritual. I find ritual as a great medium to present the divine mysteries, whether it's the lighting of a lamp or a candle. So in my church back in South Africa, Lenasia, I did a few symbolic ritual actions that helped to this understanding. I'll share one such.
Sure.
We have a festival called Palm Sunday, when the story says that Jesus entered Jerusalem and they took these palm leaves and they were putting it before him and praising him as the King of Kings. And so churches traditionally on that day would carry palm leaves and walk around the church. So when I got to this church, I suggested we carry our palm leaves and go to the temple. The Shiva temple, which wasn't far from the church. And so what we did is we took a candle from the church, to the Shiva temple. And there the priest took me right into the Mulasthanam, the holy place, and allowed me to place the candle there with a cross. And then he would take a lamp from the Shiva Lingam and give to me to carry back to the church to place on the altar as a wonderful sign of the light is one, but we perceive it in different ways.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I find symbolic action very helpful rather than simply speaking philosophy,
Yes.
I think some of us need to understand that philosophy on a higher level, but when communicating to the masses, it has to be offered in much more simpler ways. And symbolic action is always very powerful with that.
I think all the rituals have a very deep spiritual basis, but I think, as you mentioned, rituals are a way of sustaining the message in some ways to help the masses continue the tradition. So one day someone will perhaps question the ritual and then perhaps understand the deep spiritual meaning inherent in that. So once you start introducing these things, probably there'll be people who start questioning them, and once those inquiry happens, perhaps that'll be the first step to realizing something of that nature, of that profound nature.
In fact, one of the rituals that's my favorite in Hinduism is the ritual of Deeparadhane Arti. And just the turning of the fire. I know in some of the ancient temples, the inner sanctum, the Mulasthanam is generally very dark and you can't see the murti until the arti is turned. And I love the symbol of that, and I've used it in the church also around a murti of Jesus. But I haven't explained what it means. And for me, the meaning
So you've done arati.
Oh, yes.
To Jesus. In your church.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And the meaning of it is that God is veiled in this mystery of darkness.
Yes.
You and I can't see him. Darkness, speaking of the mystery, that God is veiled in. And yet by his grace, he gives us light of himself. As that arti is turned, you start to catch glimpses of the murti. You see a hand, you see a leg, you see the face, and you catch glimpses of it. And so God gives us glimpses of himself, totally by the grace of his divine light. But never assume you've got the full picture when you get those glimpses.
Yes.
Because while I might catch one hand, you might catch the other side of the divinity. The picture is only complete when we put all those revelations together. Then we catch the bigger picture of God. There's that famous analogy of religions are like different parts up a mountain.
Yes.
At the base of the mountain, it might look very different, the side I'm climbing from the side you're climbing. There might be a village on your side and my side might have nothing. And you send me a report of what your side looks like and I say, oh no, you're climbing a different mountain. This is not the same mountain. But as we go higher, the view becomes a little similar. And when we reach the top of the mountain, suddenly that awakening happens and we're like, whoa, we've been climbing the same mountain, And that's what the religions are like. They're just different parts up the one mountain. Because God is love. When he sends the rain, he never says, this rain is for the Christians today and this is for the Hindus tomorrow. He doesn't divide the rain according to gender or race or creed. It comes to all.
Yes.
And that's the love of God. It's for everyone. It's just that some people awaken to it and realize it. And yet it's available in every moment, every second, to every single human being on the face of the earth.
As you mentioned about this arati. And similarly, you have so many traditions. The abhishekam that happens on the idols. What do you say about that? What is your understanding about that?
I've also done abhishekam on a statue of Jesus.
Okay. Oh my God.
but yeah, abhishekam is another powerful ritual. You see, for me, everything that's done externally in a Hindu ritual or any ritual in any religion must be internalized. Because the true murti that abhishekam must be done is the image of divinity within me. So when I'm pouring that milk on the murti, what am I saying? All nourishment comes from the divine one. All goodness comes from the divine one. And so I need to find that goodness in the murti within. and allow it to express itself outwardly. Let the image of God shine with that nourishment as that milk washes the murti. Even when I put on, sometimes they use lime, which is a sour substance.
Yes.
Is it not saying that even those sour moments in our life is actually preparing us to see the face of God? Because all of this is washing the murti, so we'll see it clearly. Even those sour moments, even those moments that are bitter, are preparing us to see the face of God, not just externally, but in the depths of the human heart. So again, what a powerful ritual, if we understand the depths of it. And which religion will argue the meaning? They might look at the ritual and say, oh, we don't identify with that ritual. But when they hear this meaning, no religion is going to say, no, that's not true. You see, the rituals are communicating the same message. We have to go beyond the ritual to the meaning. When we find the meaning, we find the same message over there.
Absolutely. So when you performed these rituals in South Africa, were they accepted?
Well, it takes a lot of teaching. So with my congregation, I got to a point where they really understood this principle of oneness. I think I had 3 responses. One is, yes, this is good, and we want to be part of this. The second was, no, we don't think this is right, and we want to distance ourselves from it. And the third was, we're not sure, we'll just bear with you for now, that sort of thing. So the responses are different, but for those whom it's meant for, they will follow it. Because their grace, their punya of their karma has allowed them to see this.
Because your sincerity shows. So I think that will definitely have its impact.
Well, it's all His grace, just filtered.